Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I'm Kirti Sophia Panachan, and in today's session we'll be dealing with the chapter Toba Takes Singh by Saadat Hasan Manto. Saadat Hasan Manto was an Indo-Pakistani author, journalist, and screenwriter. Manto was born in Ludhiana district of undivided Punjab on 11th May 1912. Though he had Kashmiri origins, Manto grew up speaking Punjabi. At the age of 21, inspired by Abdul Bari Alik, he started reading Russian and French authors. He began his literary career by translating Victor Hugo's The Last Day of a Condemned Man. He joined Aligarh Muslim University for graduation and started writing short stories. During his brief stint at All India Radio, he published 4 collections of radio plays. The second phase of his career began with screenwriting for films like Shikari and Mirza Ghalib. In 1948, Manto and his family left India for Pakistan, and after the partition and since then he had been haunted by the memories of the past. The painful existence in Pakistan gradually drove him towards alcoholism and depression. He died in 18th January 1955 in Lahore, Pakistan. His 22 collections of short stories, along with one novel and a series of radio plays, had gained him great reputation among the writers of short stories in Indian subcontinent. His short stories are popular for their depiction of appalling realities of life. He firmly believed that writers should not veil the hypocrisy of society for the sake of decorum. Most of his stories were built around the agony and sufferings that followed the partition of India in 1947. The notable works written by Saadat Hasan Manto are Toba Takes Singh, Cold Meat, Bombay Stories, Open It, The Black Garment, Black Milk and Mortal Dawn. Toba Takes Singh is a satirical short story on the madness called communalism which culminated itself in the partition of India into 2 separate nations, India and Pakistan, in 1947. The satirical vein runs throughout the story, and madness as a metaphor for religious fanaticism looms large as the narrative progresses. Toba is a Punjabi word and it means pond, and it is named after the Sikh religious leader Tek Singh. The legend says that Tek Singh, a kind-hearted man, served water and provided shelter to poor travelers irrespective of their caste and creed who passed by a small pond called Toba, and eventually it began to be called as Toba Tek Singh. In Toba Tek Singh, Manto portrays a social and psychological territory in which madness is the reigning norm. Reigning means most powerful. Rigmarole, bedlam, and gibberish are the 3 motifs in the story. Rigmarole means lengthy and complicated, bedlam means confusion, and gibberish means meaningless speech. The 3 being metaphors of madness and chaos. The story was first published in 1953 in an Urdu magazine called Savera. During the period when he wrote the story, Manto himself was admitted to a lunatic asylum in Pakistan due to the traumatic experience of partition. In a way, Toba Singh is the finale of Manto's constant obsession with the throes of partition. The striking feature of Manto's treatment of partition and the long-standing scar it inflicted on India and Pakistan is that he never took a political stand and never tried to become judgmental. The present extract that we are about to learn was translated from Urdu and it was translated by Tahira Naqvi. Moving on to the chapter, Toba Singh. 2 or 3 years after the partition, it occurred to the governments of India and Pakistan that along with the transfer of the civilian prisoners, a transfer of the inmates of the lunatic asylums should also be made. Lunatic means a person who is mentally ill, and asylum means it's an institution where people who are mentally ill are kept. In other words, Muslim lunatics from Indian institutions should be sent over to Pakistan, and Hindu and Sikh lunatics from Pakistani asylums should be allowed to go to India. It is debatable whether this was a judicious step. Nonetheless, several high-level conferences took place and the day of the transfer was fixed. Following a great deal of initial investigation, those inmates who had relatives in India were retained there while the rest were transported to the border. Since there were no Hindus or Sikhs in Pakistan, the question of retaining anyone there did not arise. All the Hindus and Sikhs in the asylums were taken to the border in the custody of the police. So in these paragraphs we could see that after the partition, the governments of India and Pakistan have decided that along with the transfer of civilian prisoners, they decided to transfer the people who are mentally ill, who are kept in the asylums of Pakistan and India. So they decided to send the Muslim lunatics from the Indian asylums to Pakistan, and from Pakistan the Sikh and Hindu lunatics should come to India. What happened in India is not known, but here in the Lahore asylum, the news of the transfer resulted in interesting speculation among the inmates. One man who had been reading Zamindar regularly for nearly 12 years was approached by a friend. "What is Pakistan?" "A place in India where they manufacture razors," he answered after much deliberation. Deliberation means after a lot of discussion. His friend appeared to be satisfied by the answer. A Sikh lunatic asked another Sikh, "Sardarji, why are we being sent to Hindustan? We can't even speak their language." "But I know the language of the Hindustanis," the first one interjected with a smile, adding, "Hindustanis are devilish. They strut about haughtily." Strut means to walk and haughtily means arrogantly. During the course of a bath one morning, an inmate shouted, "Pakistan Zindabad!" so loudly that he slipped on the floor and fainted. So in this part we could see that the inmates of Lahore asylum are having a deliberate discussion about their transfer to India. They are not quite sure what's happening in India, but here in their asylum in Lahore, one man is asking to another person, who reads Zamindar. It's a paper that he is reading for about 12 years. And this friend approaches that man and asks what Pakistan is. And the man who was reading Zamindar told him that it's a place in India where they manufactures razors. And this answer was acceptable for the person who asked the question. And later on, we could see that a Sikh lunatic asked another Sikh lunatic that why are we being sent to Hindustan? He doesn't want to go to Hindustan, and he's asking why are we being sent over there? Because we don't know their language. And the other Sikh is asking or answering to the first Sikh who asked the question that I know the language of Hindustan, and these Hindustani people are extremely devilish people, and they walk in a very arrogant manner. That is what the Sikh lunatic told the Sikh who asked the question. And another person or another inmate in the asylum, while he was taking a bath in the morning, he began to shout out loudly, Pakistan, Zindabad. And suddenly he slipped on the floor and he hit his head on the floor and he fainted. So all these things happened in the asylum when the people in the asylum realized that they were about to be transferred to India. That's all for today. We'll continue in the next class. I hope today's session was fruitful for you all. Thank you so much.